I am absolutely thrilled and honored to have retired Navy SEAL Chris Beck with me today. And Chris has a really compelling story, especially as we gird our loins for Pride Month. June is coming, as they say. And I really wanted to bring Chris on because Chris is fighting against the radical transgender movement, and he has a very amazing story to tell. So, Chris, welcome to Angela's Soapbox, and glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So tell everybody a little bit about, you were a Navy SEAL, you were SEAL Team 6, correct me if I'm wrong, which is the highest Navy SEAL you can be. And you fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. And what happened when you came home?
Well, so I was in the SEALs for 20 years and I retired. I left the Navy SEALs, and as a civilian, it's confusing going from the military where everything's just, so precise and so like everything. And then, so that's a pretty big transition going from the military to the SEAL teams alone. That's a tough transition. And you add on top of that, all the injuries and PTSD and traumatic brain injury from all the explosions and everything else. There's a lot that veterans go through. The problem right now in America is when veterans come home, especially from war, we're not re-assimilated. So in my assimilation, I'm talking about the fact that what we went through is something that no human should ever go through. It's just horrible, warfare and killing and all. It's just carnage, and it's just disgusting. And so that's stuck in our souls. So when we come home, civilians don't want to talk about it. So, and I know that in the Native American cultures, they send the warriors out away and they go fight. When they come back, the warriors are brought back to the fire. And then everybody sits around the fire all together, the entire tribe, and they talk. And they allow the warriors to talk about what happened. They allow the warriors to speak about their experiences. I have family members that have no idea that I even have a Purple Heart or what happened or when it happened. I could ask any one of my family members right now, when did I get a Purple Heart? They couldn't even tell you the day. So this is how much even my own family would even speak to me about the war, So we are not assimilated back into our culture. So we still have this black mark. We still have this sludge of warfare, of combat stuck in our souls. Now, to heal our souls, we have to come back to the fire. We have to tell our stories. We have to describe our stories in such a way so that they understand where we're coming from. And with that comes healing. So now you have all these kids, right? And I think they're kind of going through a lot of the same things. They're just not in our culture. They're like kids rebel. If you're a teenager, 12, 13, 14 years old, I had a mohawk when I was a kid. I wanted to do all kinds of stupid stuff. I wanted tattoos. I wanted to have my motorcycle. I wanted to be, a kid. This is what kids do. And so these kids are not growing up. They're being forced into these situations where they're making life-altering decisions as a 12 or 13-year-old, even 10 years old, I've heard. So when I got back, I was going through a lot of stuff, and I had this real disconnect with my family and disconnect with the entire culture. And so where do I go? So I went someplace where I thought I was accepted, but the fact was I got love bombed. Now, love bomb is a term that's used by cults. So when you go into a community, you're hugged and you're told how wonderful you are. And oh my God, you're the most amazing thing ever.
Let me stop you there. So when you got back, the community you were embraced by transgender community. Okay.
I was embraced by the LGBTQ community because I was different, and I grew up a little different. And the fact was I wasn't different. I was just a confused kid who was just still confused. And then as an adult, I would look back at my childhood and I says, well, I kind of want to go back 20 years before I was in the military to what I used to be. What did I used to be? And I was like, well, I was kind of a rebel. I was kind of a punk rocker. I was kind of this, kind of that. And so I found a community that when I walked in the door, I was like, hi, here I am. And they went, oh my gosh, you're amazing. Oh my God. And hugging, love bombing, just like a cult does. So, and it's horrible. So when you have a kid who's 13 years old and they're in junior high or high school and they're going through stuff, they're going through what every kid goes through, and they're rebelling. And they're going against their parents. They're going against this. They want to get tattoos. They want to ride on a motorcycle and be crazy. That's what kids do. But as soon as they're told no, another community, the transgender community, is going, yeah, you can do whatever you want. You can do anything. You can even get a double mastectomy. You can get all your stuff cut off. You can do this. You can do that. You can wear whatever you want. Oh, you want a new name? We'll call you a new name. And they're love bombed. A 13-year-old being love bombed and being told no by the parents. Who do you think you're going to go to? Now
Right.
they're being lied to. They're not being told all of the complications with surgery. They're not being told that if you're on puberty blockers as a 13, 14, 15-year-old, you will never have an orgasm in your entire life. You will go to a point where you have no orgasms. You're gonna have a double mastectomy. You're gonna have everything all cut up, and you're never gonna return back to what you could have been. So you never know what you could have been. You're rebelling against your parents. You're rebelling against God, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, and then what happens is they destroy themselves, and they destroy themselves to a point when you can't return. Now, the fact is 80% of kids who have gender dysphoria before puberty or even during puberty, 80% of those kids will fix the situation. They will figure it out. They go, well, I didn't really have gender dysphoria. I was just a confused, rebellious kid. And I just wanted to do this or that. And then so that 80%. And so
Yeah.
now if you have a school, if you have all these psychologists, you have all these people saying, all of you kids will even say, well, I'm kind of confused and I don't know if I'm a boy or a girl. Oh, hey, come on in, you're love bombed. They give them all the information. They're not giving the medical trauma. They're not giving all the stuff. 80% of those kids would have gone back to regular life.
Right.
But if they're pulling all those kids in, that means 8 out of 10 of those kids are not transgender.
Right.
But they're making them transgender. They're being love bombed. They're being operated on. They no longer have their parts. They no longer have an ability to even return to normal.
Well, let me
Once you
stop
start
you
doing
there
the
because
transgender thing,
your
you can't go
story
back.
is
You can't go back.
you can't go back. Your story is so compelling because after you came out of the SEALs and the military, you began your transition and you were
Yep.
living as a woman, correct? And you had
I was living as a male dressed up in fake clothing and fake
right.
everything.
And
I was a man
embraced by the left.
dressed up like a woman. I was a man using the stereotypes of women to
Right.
make believe I was a woman. This is
Right.
what the transgender community is. It's not
Right.
real women. They're not real. They're just
women,
dressing up. It's a
not
bunch of charlatans. They are fake. Just like when I see some of those Catholic people, I see Catholics in all their hats and all their gold, and they're millionaires, and they're running around talking about the poor. So I say the same thing to Catholics. There's a lot of them out there. They're faking it. You're not Christians. You guys are evil. And I'm saying the same thing to the transgender community. I'll say the same thing to anybody else. If you're lying, we're going to catch you. You know,
yeah.
if you're a charlatan, if you're dressing up in a clown suit because you think you're something else, I say the same thing to Catholics because they always bring that up. They go, what about all the pedophiles in the Catholic Church? I said, well, I'm calling them out too.
Absolutely.
I'm calling out the entire transgender community. Some of y'all might be something, but you're bringing 80% of those kids are not transgender.
They're not
80% of those kids, 8 out of 10. You're destroying lives. So how about you be truthful? How about you tell the whole truth about these surgeries and hurting these kids? About the double mastectomy of a 10-year-old. Do you think she knew what was going on? She was a tomboy. When she turned 18, she would have been okay. But you made her not okay. She'd never be okay.
I'm reminded of Shiloh, Jolie Pitt.
One more thing. Okay, sorry. The other thing is once you do this, once you start doing all these drugs, do these hormones, you're on hormones forever.
Forever.
You become a pharmaceutical patient forever. So you don't $100,000 that the insurance companies pay for. You don't think there's money involved? This is a $1 billion industry right now. All these companies out there with all this Target and doing all this clothing and these rainbow crap. It's all money. Do you think they care about you? You're a 13-year-old kid. Do you think anyone cares about you except your parents, except Jesus, except me? I care about you. I love you. I want you to be okay. If you're 8 out of 10 kids are getting destroyed, those 8 kids that you're pulling into your transgender thing, I care about those 8 kids. You can have the other 2 if that's what you want, but you're destroying 8 of those kids.
Right.
8 out of the 10 kids is who I care about.
Right.
You're hurting them.
Right. What I find really interesting.
I'm passionate about this. I'm sorry.
No, please. I mean, it's important because you came out of war in a frame of mind where you were like, my brain is jarbled. I'm not getting support. I felt like I was different. So maybe it's this. And you wrote a book called Lady Valor.
Yeah,
You were on
just
CNN.
like those kids.
You were on your new name was Kristen, correct? Kristen. And then when did you start detransitioning? When did you start detransitioning back to normal?
So I the detransition is something that's kind of a journey. The problem is when I started this journey, I went to one psychologist And within about one session, 2 sessions, they're like, here's hormones, here's this, here's this. They never did the sessions. So what happened was I found love in a lady named Courtney, and she's my fiance now. So there was like some real love coming in. And there was also with the love, there were some hard truths. And she was asking me questions. At the same time, I was doing my master's degree in mental health counseling. And everything I'm telling you right now, there's things that I learned while I didn't get my master's degree in mental health counseling. I did all the psychology, I did all the human development, I did all the stuff that you have to do, but I did it on my own because nobody was giving me the truth. So I went out on my own. I was like, all right, you're not going to tell me the truth. I'm going to start figuring this out myself. And that's what I did. And I started seeing the truth. I started seeing all these psychologists and what they were saying were lies. They're not giving you the full thing. They actually took the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, the DSM. They've changed the manual that all psychology uses to qualify these sicknesses, these mental health issues. They changed the manual to make it
crazy.
The money. So it's about money. It has nothing to do with health. This is not health. You think chopping off body parts is healthy? No.
It's ludicrous.
Getting help. So I started going through therapy sessions. I started doing it with my fiance. We were doing hardcore, sessions with each other, just talking through it, just as if she was a psychologist, and then I'd reverse it. I would be a psychologist. So it took about 3 or 4 months, and it was like, bing, light bulb goes off, and I was going, this is ridiculous. What did I do to myself? Then I found the love of Jesus. So I grew up in a Christian family throughout my entire childhood. I went to Christian schools. I went to Lynchburg Christian Academy as a kid, and that was also Jerry Falwell's church and everything. So I grew up as a Christian. I was in a hardcore reading the Bible during school for English classes. We would go through the Bible. So I know a lot about religion, but then I went away from it. I turned my back on it. So what happened was when I started fixing myself, and with the love of Courtney also, I refound my love that Jesus gave me, that God gave me. And I was able to rekindle that relationship between myself and our God the Father who created everything. So my Father in heaven right now is looking out for me, and I'm looking out for him. And I'm looking out for all these kids that are being destroyed. These kids are being pulled in to this sick, evil agenda, where not everyone needs to be pulled into this agenda. They're recruiting kids. They're doing it by being at Target. They're recruiting babies. Come on. There's something going on here. There's a huge agenda, $1 billion industry, probably $1 trillion now.
Trillion. Tell people how they can reach you, and if I'm sure you're on the speaker circuit. You'd be a great speaker to have anywhere. Well, how can people reach you?
Actually, I was on a speaker circuit. I was with leading authorities out of Washington, D.C. They fired me, and I hired Fauci. So they wanted Dr. Fauci, and I'm no longer with them. But they didn't really fire me, but they stopped calling. And they said, we're going to take down your website. So there was no way for anybody to talk to me. So I used to be on a speaker circuit. I would charge pretty good, I was getting all kinds of corporations were hiring me. So no corporation wants to talk to me now because I'm a detransitioner.
Because you detransitioned. When you transitioned,
right
they
now,
loved you, right?
They loved me. They were giving me $15,000, to talk for 1 hour, 15 grand. Can you imagine that? Now nobody will even call me. So is there an agenda? So if you're a Christian and you're honest, nobody wants you. So who's oppressed? So now I go to churches and I speak for free, and I just say, hey, I'll speak anywhere. So I went down to the Texas Capitol before they had that big vote on that on the banning of children getting surgery. So I was there and I spoke to a crowd of 300 people. At the end of me talking, there was a standing ovation. Everybody was just cheering. It was like, because I'm a professional speaker. This is what I do, And I spoke at churches. I'm an ordained minister, so I give my own sermons, and I do it all for free now because I don't want to collect money for trying to save people's lives.
Well, how can people?
So I do ask, hey, if you throw
on
some
social media,
I'll get gasoline money. I'll give you some gas money. Or a meal. Throw me a donut. But I want the word to be out there. I will not charge anyone for doing this. My Instagram handle and all of my social media is all the same thing. It's Valor with the number 4 US. Valor for us. And that's on Instagram. So you follow me on Instagram and you get a hold of me, then I'll show up at your church.
I will be following you, Chris. I will be.
From my heart, I can't charge for this stuff.
Yeah.
Just give me some gas money maybe a dinner or something.
You are
know?
doing God's work, and I can't wait to talk to you on my other show, but we have to cut it short right now, guys. You are listening
Yeah, I
to
know it was
Angela
short.
Soapbox on Raging Elephants Radio. Thank you, Chris, and we will be right back.